Ryan Caldwell's childhood was marked by lessons that most children only learn in adulthood. Sitting in his father's office chair, his back already ached from so much time stopped there. There were books open on the mahogany desk, complex graphs with red lines and numbers that danced before his tired eyes. His father explained concepts about investments, stocks, and volatile markets with an excitement that the 6-year-old boy couldn't share. When he was finally released to play, Ryan ran through the marble corridors of the mansion until he found his brothers, Carter and Ethan, playing in the heated pool. The warm water welcomed his small body while he could finally be just a child. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, in a simple apartment but full of love, another story unfolded. Scarlett Morgan and her older sister Hannah were sitting on the living room floor next to their parents. The old television displayed the lottery draw, and the entire family held the tickets with hope shining in their eyes. They didn't win anything that time, but their mother served homemade chocolate cake while their father distributed new notebooks he had bought with his salary. Scarlett promised her sister that one day she would be rich and help the entire family. Hannah swore never to forget their roots, no matter what happened in the future. The years passed like leaves carried by the wind. Ryan grew up immersed in the Caldwell family empire, learning to read financial statements before even understanding poetry. He became the youngest of the 3 brothers, always seeking approval from his billionaire father while carrying secrets that no one imagined. Carter, the oldest, was the renowned surgeon and main heir. Ethan, the middle one, worked in the family business with silent dedication. Scarlett blossomed into a vibrant young woman, full of dreams and determination. Her beauty caught attention wherever she went. Golden brown hair that captured sunlight, expressive dark eyes that revealed every emotion, natural curves that she celebrated without shame. She studied fashion design at a small college while helping her older sister Hannah, who had become a successful entrepreneur in the modeling area. Fate placed them on the same path when Hannah married Ethan Caldwell. The ceremony was grand, held at a 5-star luxury hotel. Scarlett and her parents were treated like royalty for the first time in their lives. The hotel was a world apart, with exclusive restaurants where the dishes had French names that she couldn't pronounce. Waiters in impeccable uniforms served food that seemed more like art than food. Scarlett joked with her parents during dinner about marrying a rich foreigner like her sister, just to make life easier. It was that night that her eyes met Ryan's for the first time. He was at the hotel bar, wearing a perfectly fitted black suit, holding a whiskey glass while talking to businessmen. Scarlett had spent days exploring the luxurious hotel facilities, making friends from different countries, receiving pickup lines that she politely refused. But Ryan was different, younger than his brothers, perhaps 30 years old, perfectly combed dark hair, strong jawline covered by a well-trimmed beard, broad shoulders that filled the suit with natural authority. And that smile, that damn cocky smile that made her stomach do flips. Scarlett began frequenting the hotel environments where she knew she would find him. Not obviously, but strategically casual. She discovered through Hannah that Ryan had an active Instagram profile, unlike his more reserved brothers. She studied every posted photo as if it were an academic project. He was her perfect type of trouble. The opportunity arose on a rainy night. Hannah casually mentioned during dinner that Ethan had cancelled a meeting with Ryan at the heated pool because he had a headache. Scarlett knew that code. Honeymoon. The newlyweds wanted privacy, which meant Ryan would be alone at the heated pool. Alone, at night, in a private environment. Scarlett didn't think twice. She changed clothes, put on her best red bikini, wrapped herself in a fluffy white robe, and headed to the exclusive pool area. Her heart beat like a war drum in her chest. She was only 18 years old, but she knew exactly what she wanted. When she entered, she found Ryan exactly where she imagined. He was leaning against the edge of the enormous rectangular pool, surrounded by indirect lights that reflected on the white marble. Steam rose from the hot water. His muscular torso was exposed, drops running down his defined muscles. A drink glass rested on the edge next to him. When Ryan saw her enter, his dark eyes traveled over her from top to bottom with an intensity that made her skin tingle. Scarlett walked slowly to the edge, untied the robe's tie, and let it fall over her shoulders. The red bikini contrasted with her golden skin. She entered the water without breaking eye contact. The warm temperature enveloped her as she swam toward him. Ryan didn't move, just watched with that neutral expression impossible to decipher. When she got close enough to feel the heat emanating from his body, Scarlett placed her hands on the edge, one on each side of Ryan's torso, effectively trapping him. She could smell the drink on his breath, mixed with expensive perfume. Their faces were inches apart. The tension in the air was palpable, electric. Ryan didn't touch her initially. His eyes just studied her as if trying to decipher a complex puzzle. Then his voice, deep and controlled, broke the silence. He asked if she was sure of what she was doing, if she understood the consequences. Scarlett responded by bringing her lips closer to his, eliminating the space between their bodies. The kiss began slowly, exploratory, soft lips moving against hers with skill that demonstrated experience. Then Ryan pulled her closer, one large hand closing around her waist, the other rising up her back. The kiss deepened, tongues meeting, moans muffled by the water. Scarlett felt every muscle of his body pressed against hers. She felt the evident desire in the way he held her, how his fingers sank into her flesh. They were interrupted by male voices. A group of Argentinians had entered the pool area, talking loudly and laughing. Ryan immediately pulled away from her, creating distance. Frustration burned in Scarlett's chest, but she maintained her composure. The Argentinians began hitting on her, making jokes in Spanish that she barely understood. To get rid of them, Scarlett made a joke about marrying a rich foreigner. The men laughed and eventually left, but Ryan had witnessed everything. The atmosphere between them changed. Ryan got out of the pool without looking back, grabbed his towel, and disappeared through the glass door. Scarlett was left alone in the hot water, confused and frustrated. She didn't understand what she had done wrong. She didn't comprehend the sudden change in his behavior. In the following days, Scarlett looked for Ryan in the hotel environments, but he seemed to be actively avoiding her. When they finally saw each other at breakfast with the family, Ryan was polite but distant. He treated her as he would treat any casual acquaintance. Nothing in his behavior suggested what had happened between them at the pool. Scarlett's confusion turned into determination. On the last night before everyone returned to the United States, there was a party on the hotel terrace. Scarlett dressed with special care. A short black dress that hugged her curves, high heels that lengthened her legs, makeup that highlighted her eyes. She went down to the party, determined to confront Ryan. He was at the bar, surrounded by executives in expensive suits. When their eyes met through the crowded environment, something passed between them. Recognition, desire, regret. Scarlett didn't look away. She walked directly to him with confidence she didn't completely feel. Ryan excused himself from the businessman and walked away from the bar, walking toward a more private area of the terrace. Scarlett followed him without hesitation. They met near the balustrade, with the view of the illuminated city stretching below them. The sound of the party was a distant murmur. Ryan spoke first. He explained that he had made a mistake, that she was too young, his sister-in-law's sister, that there could be nothing between them. Scarlett felt anger boil in her veins. Who was he to decide this alone? She wasn't a child who needed protection. The argument heated up. Voices were raised. Accusations were thrown. Then Ryan pulled her into an empty hotel room, away from curious ears. The door had barely closed when they met again. This time, there was no gentleness or exploration. It was pure need. Clothes were torn off urgently. Hands explored heated skin. Moans filled the luxurious room. Scarlett gave her virginity to Ryan that night. It was intense, passionate, desperate. He was careful initially, conscious that it was her first time, but when the initial pain passed and pleasure took over, they both completely lost themselves. It was everything Scarlett had dreamed of and more. Ryan was experienced, knew exactly where to touch, how to move, what to say. He took her to climax multiple times before finally seeking his own. Afterward, lying among Egyptian cotton sheets, Scarlett expected sweet words or declarations. Instead, Ryan got up, dressed quickly and said he needed to go. He promised they would talk the next day before everyone left. He kissed her forehead with a tenderness that contrasted with his hurry to leave. Then he disappeared through the door, leaving Scarlett alone and confused. The next morning brought devastation. Scarlett woke up hopeful, ready to finally have an honest conversation with Ryan. But when she passed through the hotel corridors, she heard voices coming from one of the gardens. She immediately recognized Ryan and Ethan's voices. She hid behind a column, without intention of spying, but unable to walk away. Ethan questioned where Ryan had spent the night. Ryan responded with a cold and calculated lie. He said he had been with a random tourist whose name he didn't even remember. He laughed, describing how easy it had been. Ethan made a comment about Hannah's younger sister, Scarlett, and whether Ryan thought she was pretty. Ryan responded with palpable disdain. He said Scarlett wasn't his type. Too young, immature, obviously a gold digger looking for a rich husband. He would never get involved with someone like that. Each word was a stab to Scarlett's heart. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall there. She waited until the brothers walked away before leaving her hiding place. She returned to her room with trembling legs and collapsed as soon as the door closed. She cried until she had no more tears. The humiliation burned more than the pain of betrayal. On the flight back to Brazil, Scarlett maintained a mask of normalcy. She smiled when necessary, participated in superficial conversations, pretended everything was fine. But inside something had broken. Her innocence, her confidence, her ability to believe in handsome men with sweet words. The following months were dark. Scarlett buried herself in studies, working obsessively on her fashion projects. She avoided family events where she might see Ryan. When Hannah asked if something was wrong, Scarlett lied with frightening ease. She said she was just focused on her career, tired from studies, nothing much. But at night, alone in her room, the memories returned. The smell of Ryan's skin, the taste of his lips, the sensation of his large hands exploring every inch of her body. The way he made her feel desired, beautiful, special, only to destroy everything with cruel words said behind her back. Scarlett swore that if their paths ever crossed again, Ryan Caldwell would pay for every tear shed. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. A year later, Scarlett received news that would change everything. She had been accepted to Ashford University, one of the most prestigious institutions in the United States. It was a dream come true. The university was in Northbrook, the same city where the Caldwells resided, the same city where Ryan lived. Scarlett initially considered refusing, but that would be letting him control her life. It would be allowing fear and hurt to dictate her choices. No, she would accept the spot, move to the United States and live her life. If she encountered Ryan, she would treat him with the indifference he deserved. The arrival in Northbrook was overwhelming. The city was modern, but maintained European charm in certain neighborhoods. Glass buildings coexisted with historic constructions. Well-maintained parks dotted the busy streets, and the Ashford University campus was breathtaking. Stone buildings covered with ivy, impeccable green lawns, a library that looked like a medieval castle. Hannah and Ethan helped Scarlett settle into an apartment near campus. It was spacious, modern, with a view of the park, furnished with taste and full of details that showed her sister's affection. Scarlett was grateful, but also anxious. She knew it was a matter of time before she encountered Ryan again. The first meeting happened sooner than expected. There was a family dinner at Carter's mansion, the older brother. Scarlett tried to invent excuses, but Hannah insisted she attend. It would be a family night, relaxed, nothing formal. Scarlett had no choice but to accept. She dressed with strategic care, jeans that hugged her curves, a simple but elegant blouse, natural makeup that enhanced her beauty without seeming exaggerated. She tied her hair in a loose bun, letting some strands frame her face. She wanted to look casual but stunning. She wanted Ryan to see exactly what he had lost. Carter's mansion was even more impressive than Scarlett remembered. Automatic gates opened, revealing meticulously maintained gardens. The house itself was an architectural work of art, combining modern elements with classics. Enormous windows, spacious balconies, an Olympic pool that shone under underwater lights. Scarlett entered, holding Hannah's arm firmly. The main room was full. Carter and his wife Skylar received them warmly. Ethan hugged his sister-in-law with genuine pride. And then Scarlett saw him. Ryan was near the fireplace, holding a glass of red wine, talking to a small boy that Scarlett presumed was his nephew. When their eyes met across the room, time seemed to freeze. A year had passed, but the attraction was still there, pulsing between them like an electric current. Ryan looked different, more mature perhaps. His beard was fuller. There were some expression lines around his eyes that weren't there before, but he was still devastatingly handsome. Ryan approached with measured steps. He greeted Scarlett with polite formality, as if they were mere acquaintances. He asked about the university, about the apartment, about adapting to the city. His voice was controlled, neutral, revealing absolutely nothing. Scarlett responded in the same tone, maintaining emotional distance even when every cell in her body screamed for her to confront him right there. The dinner was sophisticated torture. Scarlett sat strategically far from Ryan, but couldn't avoid looking in his direction repeatedly. He talked animatedly with his brothers, laughed at inside jokes, played with his nephew. He seemed completely unaffected by her presence, as if she were just another irrelevant guest. Anger simmered under the calm surface that Scarlett maintained. How dare he act so indifferent? How could he pretend nothing had happened between them? She wanted to scream, wanted to throw wine in his face, wanted to expose every lie he had told. But Scarlett remained composed. She conversed politely when necessary, praised the food prepared by the family's cook, thanked them for their hospitality. No one, except perhaps Hannah, who knew her deeply, noticed the inner storm that threatened to explode. After dinner, Scarlett sought refuge in the garden. She needed fresh air, space to breathe away from that perfect family, with their perfect smiles and their perfect wealth. She was standing near the pool when she heard footsteps behind her. Ryan approached without asking permission, stopped beside her, maintaining respectful distance. They remained in silence for long minutes, just watching the illuminated pool water ripple gently. Then Ryan spoke. He said they needed to talk about what happened in Brazil, that they couldn't pretend forever. Scarlett laughed without humor. Conversations were what he should have had a year ago, before sleeping with her and then speaking badly about her to his brother. Now it was too late. She didn't want his explanations or apologies. She just wanted him to leave her alone. Ryan insisted. He explained that he had reacted badly at that time, that he was dealing with his own demons, traumas from past relationships, that he had heard from third parties, that Scarlett had declared interest in marrying a rich man, and this had activated all his defenses. That yes, he had been an idiot, but he couldn't go back in time to change it. Each word made Scarlett more furious. He was blaming past traumas, rumors that she didn't even remember saying. This was his big excuse for destroying her heart. She turned to face him completely, allowing all the accumulated anger to finally overflow. Scarlett said exactly what she thought, that Ryan was a coward, arrogant, someone who projected his insecurities onto others, that she had given herself completely to him and in return received humiliation, that no matter how many apologies he offered, nothing would change the fact that she hated him, hated his pretty face, his cocky smile, his false concern. Ryan listened to everything without interrupting. When she finished, panting with rage and on the verge of tears, he did something unexpected. He apologized, not defensively or condescendingly, but genuinely. He admitted he had been a complete idiot, that there was no excuse for what he had done, that he would understand if she never forgave him. The sincerity in his voice temporarily disarmed Scarlett, but she recovered quickly. Forgiveness wasn't something that could simply be asked for and granted. It would need to be earned, and she wasn't certain that Ryan deserved that opportunity. They made an agreement that night in the garden. They would treat each other with mutual respect when forced to coexist at family events. There would be no malicious comments, provocations, or attempts to hurt. It would be civilized, mature, final, nothing more, nothing less. The following months tested that agreement repeatedly. Scarlett dedicated herself intensely to studies at the university. Fashion design was her passion, and she flourished under the guidance of renowned professors. Her projects caught attention. Her ideas were innovative. She began to make a name for herself in the competitive fashion world. Simultaneously, Scarlett began doing volunteer work at a charity institution that helped women in vulnerable situations. It was something she had always wanted to do and finally had the time and resources. The work was rewarding, gave purpose beyond the superficiality of the fashion industry. It was at one of these institution events that Scarlett met Blake Morrison. He was a professional American football player, famous not only for his talent on the field, but also for his charisma off it. Tall, muscular, with a dazzling smile and charming personality. Blake was a regular volunteer at the institution and didn't take long to notice Scarlett. He began courting her openly and persistently. He invited her to dinners, sent flowers to her apartment, appeared at university events to support her. He was attentive, funny, demonstrated genuine interest in her dreams and ambitions. Scarlett appreciated the attention, but couldn't develop romantic feelings for him. Perhaps because every time Blake kissed her, her thoughts flew to another man, a man with dark eyes and a dangerous smile who had broken her heart, but still occupied space in her mind that Scarlett wished she could erase. The situation complicated when Blake was invited to a Caldwell family dinner. Hannah had casually mentioned that Scarlett was dating someone, and Skylar, always the perfect hostess, insisted on meeting him. Scarlett tried to refuse, but Blake enthusiastically accepted before she could invent excuses. The dinner was disastrous from the start. Ryan was present, of course. He greeted Blake with icy politeness, shook his hand with unnecessary force, spent the entire night launching subtly malicious comments, nothing obvious enough for others to notice, but Scarlett caught every provocation disguised as courtesy. Blake, oblivious to the tension, talked animatedly about his football career. Carter and Ethan asked polite questions. Skylar and Hannah tried to keep the atmosphere light, but Ryan was visibly bothered. His fingers drummed on the table, his jaw was tense, his eyes followed Blake's every movement with disturbing intensity. After dinner, when Scarlett said goodbye to Blake in the garden with a chaste kiss, she felt eyes burning on her back. She turned quickly and found Ryan standing on the porch, watching them with an expression she couldn't decipher. It wasn't exactly anger. Maybe it was jealousy? No, impossible. Ryan had made it clear more than a year ago that she meant nothing to him. He should be happy that Scarlett had found someone who treated her well, who valued her, who wasn't ashamed to be with her. But in the following days, something changed. Ryan began appearing in places where he knew Scarlett would be. At the cafeteria near the university where she studied, at the park where she jogged in the morning, at the charity institution events, always with plausible excuses. He needed coffee, was exercising, wanted to donate to the cause. But Scarlett wasn't an idiot. The situation reached a critical point when Ryan appeared at Scarlett's semester final presentation. It was an exclusive fashion show for students to show their collections to professors and industry professionals. Only close family members and people with special invitations were allowed. Ryan didn't fit into any category, but was there anyway, sitting in the third row with a bouquet of white flowers. Scarlett got so nervous seeing him that she almost tripped going up on stage to present her collection. but professionalism won. She presented with confidence she didn't feel internally, explained the concept behind each piece, thanked her mentors. The collection was received with enthusiastic applause. Professors praised her vision. Recruiters from major brands left business cards. When everything ended, Scarlett found Ryan waiting backstage. He extended the bouquet with a nervous smile that didn't match the confident man she knew. He said her work was incredible, that he was proud, even without having the right to be, that he couldn't stay away from her any longer. Scarlett should have sent him away. She should have refused the flowers, ignored the sweet words, protected the heart he had already broken once. But there was something different about Ryan in that moment. Vulnerability she had never seen before, as if every defense he had carefully constructed throughout his life was crumbling. They talked for the first time since that night in the garden months ago. Ryan admitted he was in therapy, working through traumas he carried from past relationships. He explained about an ex-girlfriend who had used him for money, who had lied and manipulated until he developed paranoia regarding any woman who approached. Scarlett listened to everything with a divided heart. Part of her sympathized. Trauma was real, pain was valid, but another part, the part that still bled from the humiliation she suffered, remembered that traumas didn't justify hurting innocent people. She wasn't responsible for healing Ryan Caldwell. Ryan seemed to understand without her needing to verbalize. He said he didn't expect immediate forgiveness, that he just wanted a chance to prove he was different from the idiot who had hurt her. That if Scarlett gave him an opportunity, he would spend every day showing how much she meant to him. It was tempting, so dangerously tempting. But Scarlett had worked hard to rebuild her self-esteem, to not depend on male validation, to love herself independent of any man. Giving in now would be throwing all that away. She refused. She said that maybe one day when her wounds were completely healed, they could reconsider, but not now, not when it still hurt so much. Ryan accepted the rejection with grace she didn't expect. He thanked her for listening, kissed her cheek respectfully, and left. Scarlett was left alone in the empty backstage, holding the bouquet of white flowers against her chest, trying to ignore the way her heart accelerated just from thinking about giving a second chance to the man who had destroyed her. The following weeks were confusing. Blake continued courting her, but Scarlett realized her heart wasn't completely present. She liked him, appreciated his company, but there was no passion, there was no fire. It was safe, comfortable, easy, exactly the opposite of what she felt for Ryan. The situation reached a limit when Blake asked the question she feared. They were having dinner at a fancy restaurant after an important victory of his. The atmosphere was romantic. Candles illuminated the table. Soft music played in the background. Blake held her hand and asked if she saw a future between them. If they were going towards something serious or if it was just casual. Scarlett couldn't lie. She explained gently that she liked him very much but wasn't in love, that she thought it was unfair to continue when her feelings weren't reciprocal to the intensity of his. Blake deserved honesty even if it hurt. To his credit, Blake accepted with impressive maturity. He admitted he suspected her heart was elsewhere. He asked if it was Ryan, and Scarlett couldn't deny. Blake gave advice she didn't expect. He said life was too short to play games, that if she had feelings for Ryan, she should explore that, even if it scared her, especially because it scared her. They ended amicably. Blake kissed her forehead, wished her happiness, and left the restaurant, leaving Scarlett alone with her turbulent thoughts. She paid the bill and drove home on autopilot, mind spinning with all the possibilities. When she arrived at her apartment, she found Ryan waiting at the door. He was leaning against the corridor wall, wearing jeans and a casual sweater, disheveled appearance suggesting he had waited for hours. When he saw her, he straightened up immediately. Scarlett should have been irritated by the invasion of privacy. She should have asked how he managed to get past building security, but all she could focus on was his expression: desperation, hope, fear. Ryan spoke before she could send him away. He said he needed to confess something he had kept for a long time, and that was destroying him inside. Scarlett crossed her arms defensively, but nodded for him to continue. What Ryan revealed changed everything. He explained that in the last year he had been in love with her, that every day without seeing her was torture, that he watched her go out with Blake feeling like he was slowly dying, that he had tried to respect her boundaries but was reaching a breaking point. More importantly, Ryan admitted something he had never told anyone. He wasn't just an executive of the family company. For years, secretly, he wrote suspense books under a pseudonym, books that became international bestsellers. All the pressure of maintaining a double identity, of hiding true passion because the family wouldn't approve, of living for others' expectations. All of this contributed to the closed person he had become. But Scarlett made him want to be honest, want to give up masks and be simply himself, vulnerable, imperfect, but real. He was willing to risk everything, including his relationship with his family, to have a chance with her. The confession left Scarlett speechless. She had always assumed Ryan had everything under control, that his perfect life in a billionaire family meant complete happiness. She never imagined he carried the weight of crushing expectations, that he hid fundamental parts of who he was for fear of judgment. They stood in the corridor for indeterminate time, Scarlett processing revelations, Ryan waiting for a verdict. Finally, Scarlett unlocked the apartment door and invited him in. Not because she had completely forgiven, but because she was tired of fighting against the inevitable. They talked through the entire night. Ryan shared stories of a suffocating childhood under his father's critical eye, of always feeling he needed to prove value through academic and professional achievements, of how writing was his only escape valve, but he needed to keep it secret, of an ex-girlfriend who had discovered the manuscripts and tried to blackmail him to extort money. Scarlett better understood the defenses Ryan had built. It didn't justify the way he had treated her, but it contextualized. She shared her own insecurities, of coming from a humble family and always feeling inadequate near the Caldwell's wealth, of working twice as hard to prove she deserved to be there, of the visceral pain she felt hearing Ryan describe her as a gold digger when nothing could be further from the truth. When the sun began to rise, they had cried together, laughed together, deconstructed the walls they kept between themselves. Ryan asked if there was a chance, any chance, even if small, even if he needed to crawl over broken glass to reach it. Scarlett didn't respond immediately. She made Ryan wait while she carefully considered. Finally, she said she was willing to try, but with conditions. First, they would always be honest, no secrets, no lies, no masks. Second, therapy wasn't optional. Ryan would continue working on his problems. Third, if he hurt her again, it would be a definitive end, no third chances. Ryan agreed to every condition without hesitation. They sealed the agreement with a kiss that began gentle but quickly escalated to passionate. Months of unresolved sexual tension finally found release. Clothes were removed, leaving a trail from the living room to the bedroom. Hands explored familiar but newly discovered skin. Moans filled the apartment as they united in a way that was simultaneously familiar and completely new. This time was different. There was no desperate urgency of the first time. It was slow, deliberate, filled with emotion they couldn't hide. When they reached climax together, it was with open eyes, looking deeply at each other, with no barriers between their souls. Afterward, intertwined in messy sheets, Ryan traced lazy patterns on Scarlett's back while she rested her head on his chest. He whispered that he loved her, not just physical desire or attraction, but true and deep love that scared and exhilarated simultaneously. Scarlett didn't reciprocate immediately. The words got stuck in her throat. Part of her wanted to scream that she loved him too, but the cautious part that had been hurt remembered to be careful. Ryan seemed to understand. He kissed the top of her head and said he would wait, that he wasn't going anywhere. The following months were a revelation. Ryan fulfilled every promise made that night. He was patient when Scarlett's insecurities emerged. He was present in ways he had never been before. He attended her presentations at the university. He supported volunteer work at the institution. He listened when she needed to vent about difficult professors or stressful projects. More importantly, Ryan began opening his life to her. He took Scarlett to meet secret places where he wrote. He allowed her to read manuscripts in progress. He shared vulnerabilities he had kept locked for years. It was like watching someone bloom in real time. They kept their relationship relatively private initially, not because they were ashamed, but because they wanted to build a solid foundation before external exposure. The family began to suspect when they saw them together repeatedly. Hannah had knowing smiles every time the subject came up. Carter made veiled comments about certain people spending a lot of time together. The official revelation came at a Thanksgiving dinner at Carter's mansion. The entire family was gathered, including the Caldwell patriarch, whose health condition was worsening but maintained impressive lucidity. It was a perfect and terrifying moment. Ryan waited until after the main dinner, when everyone was relaxed with dessert and wine. Then he stood up, asked everyone's attention, and held Scarlett's hand. With a firm voice, he declared they were dating, that she was the love of his life, that he planned to spend the future by her side and hoped the family would support them. There was a moment of shocked silence. Then Hannah began crying tears of joy. Skylar hugged Scarlett enthusiastically. Ethan gave approving pats on his brother's shoulder. Carter raised his glass in a toast, and the Caldwell patriarch, who had observed everything silently, simply smiled and said it was about time. The family's acceptance was a gift Scarlett didn't know she needed. She had always feared they would see her as an invader, a fortune hunter wanting to take advantage, but they received her genuinely. They saw how she made Ryan happy, how he flourished by her side. That was enough. The months became a year filled with highs and lows. There were arguments when old insecurities resurfaced, moments when Scarlett questioned whether Ryan had truly changed or was just performing change, nights when he worked late and she felt neglected. But they always came back to each other. They always talked through problems instead of running away. They always chose to stay, even when it was difficult. That's how Scarlett knew it was real. True love wasn't the absence of conflict. It was choosing to face conflict together. Ryan surprised her on the anniversary of 2 years since their first kiss. He organized an elaborate event under the pretext of launching his new book. The venue was elegant, full of editors, literary critics, and fans. Scarlett was in the audience, proud of the man she loved finally sharing his passion publicly. But when Ryan went up on stage, he didn't talk about the book. He talked about love. He talked about the woman who had completely changed his life. He talked about mistakes he had made and grace he had received. And then he came down from the stage, walked straight to Scarlett, and knelt before her. The velvet box he opened contained a dazzling diamond ring. But it wasn't the jewel that made tears run down Scarlett's face. It was the words Ryan was pronouncing, asking her to become his wife, promising to love, honor, and respect every remaining day of their lives, swearing to make her the protagonist of every future chapter. Scarlett couldn't speak through tears. She just nodded frantically and threw herself into his arms. The kiss they shared was witnessed by hundreds of people, but they seemed completely alone. In that moment, nothing else existed except the two of them and the love they had almost lost, but fought to keep. The engagement celebration was chaotic and perfect. The entire family showed up without warning because Ryan had conspired with them in advance. Hannah cried uncontrollably. Skylar was already planning the ceremony. Carter gave unsolicited advice about marriage. The Caldwell patriarch observed everything with the satisfaction of a man seeing his legacy continue through true love. In the middle of the chaos, Ryan pulled Scarlett to a quiet corner. He held her face between large hands and looked at her with the intensity that always made her knees weak. He said she was the best thing that had ever happened to him, that every mistake he had made was worth it because it led to her, that he couldn't wait to call her his wife. Scarlett finally managed to verbalize words she had kept for a long time. She said she loved him, not despite his flaws, but including them. Because flaws made him human, real, hers. She said he was nightmare and dream simultaneously, that she would choose him always, in every life, in every universe. The months until the wedding flew by. Scarlett graduated from university with honors, already with offers from multiple fashion houses wanting to hire her. She decided to become an entrepreneur, open her own atelier with a focus on sustainable fashion. Ryan completely supported her, even investing financially and using connections to help. Charity work continued being a priority for both. They donated generously and dedicated time regularly. They saw the privilege they had and wanted to give back. It was something that united them beyond romantic love, a shared purpose of making a difference. The wedding ceremony was intimate but elegant, held in Carter's mansion garden during a spring sunset. Only family and close friends attended. Scarlett wore a dress she designed herself, simple but stunning. Ryan couldn't contain tears when he saw her walking toward him. The vows were personal, written by themselves. Ryan promised to be the partner she deserved, to support her dreams as fiercely as his own, never to let her doubt his love. Scarlett promised to be a safe harbor when storms came, to celebrate his victories as her own, to choose him every day, even when it was difficult. When they were declared husband and wife, the kiss was passionate enough to make the family whistle and laugh. They didn't care. They had fought too hard for that moment, not to savor it completely. The honeymoon was in Paris, a city Scarlett had always dreamed of visiting. Days were filled exploring museums, tasting incredible food, walking hand in hand through charming streets. Nights were reserved for discovering each other again, now as husband and wife. It was during the honeymoon that Ryan revealed his last secret. He was writing a new book, but this time it was different. It was a romance based on their story, of love almost lost but recovered, of second chances and redemption. He wanted to dedicate it to her, publish it under his real name instead of a pseudonym. It would be a final declaration of love. Scarlett was moved beyond words. She read the unfinished manuscript and cried through every page. She saw their story through his eyes, understood the depth of feelings he had carried in silence. It was beautiful and painful and perfect. Months after the wedding, life established a comfortable rhythm. Scarlett worked in her growing atelier. Ryan divided his time between managing family investments and writing. They made a point of having dinner together most nights, without phones or distractions. It was sacred time just for them. Family remained an important part of their lives. Sunday dinners at Carter's mansion were tradition. Nephews loved Aunt Scarlett, who always brought treats and played with them. The Caldwell patriarch, whose time was limited by illness, valued every moment with his expanded family. It was during one of these dinners that the future changed again. Scarlett hadn't been feeling well in recent days. Morning nausea, unexplained fatigue, aversion to foods she normally loved. Skylar, having previous experience, suggested a possibility that hadn't even occurred to Scarlett: pregnancy. The test confirmed. Scarlett was pregnant. The news was simultaneously exciting and terrifying. They weren't actively trying, but weren't preventing either, just living and letting nature take its course. Telling Ryan was a moment Scarlett would never forget. He arrived home after a long day, tired but smiling seeing her. Scarlett couldn't wait for the perfect moment. She simply handed him the pregnancy test and observed his reaction. Ryan was frozen for eternal heartbeats, just looking at the positive lines on the test. Then his eyes met hers and tears began to fall. He picked her up in his arms, spinning while he laughed and cried simultaneously. He repeated that he loved her, that he was happy, that he would be the best father possible. The pregnancy was revealed to the family at a special dinner. Reactions were an explosion of joy. Hannah hugged her sister crying. Skylar was already planning a baby shower. Carter offered unsolicited medical advice as the obstetrician he was. Ethan joked about teaching his nephew or niece to surf. The Caldwell patriarch just held Scarlett's hand and thanked her for allowing him to live to see his great-grandchild. The pregnancy months were a roller coaster. Scarlett worked as much as her body allowed, refusing to slow down just because she was pregnant. Ryan was overprotective to the point of suffocating. They argued about her limits, but always ended up laughing at how ridiculous they were being. When the moment of delivery arrived, it was intense and scary and wonderful. Ryan held Scarlett's hand through every contraction, whispered encouragement when she wanted to give up, cried when they finally heard the baby's first cry. It was a girl, perfect in every detail. She had her father's dark eyes, but her hair already indicated it would be golden brown like her mother. When they placed the baby in Scarlett's arms, overwhelming love consumed her. Nothing in her life had prepared her for the intensity of loving that tiny being. Ryan held his daughter with the reverence of someone holding the most precious treasure. Tears fell freely as he studied every detail of her. He whispered promises to protect, love, guide, to be the best man he could be, because she deserved it. They named the baby Luna. The name meant moon, a reminder that the turning point in their relationship had happened under moonlight. Luna Caldwell would be raised in unconditional love. She would have all the advantages that wealth offered, but also the values both parents considered fundamental: kindness, empathy, hard work, gratitude. Life with a baby was chaotic but filled with joy. Sleepless nights were balanced by first smiles. Dirty diapers were forgotten when Luna grabbed one of their fingers with her tiny hand. It was exhausting and dazzling and more rewarding than any professional achievement. The Caldwell patriarch met his great-granddaughter before illness finally won. He held Luna with infinite care, wise eyes studying her face. He said he saw a bright future, that true legacy wasn't money or companies. It was love passed through generations. It was family that chose to remain united, not out of obligation, but genuine affection. When he died weeks later, the funeral was a celebration of a life well lived. Scarlett held Ryan while he cried the loss of his father. She promised to honor his memory by raising their daughter with the values he cherished: hard work, integrity, love, family. Years passed at surprising speed. Luna grew into a curious and loving girl. She had the best of both parents, Ryan's charm and Scarlett's creativity. Scarlett's atelier flourished into an internationally recognized brand. Ryan published a series of books that dominated bestseller lists. But most importantly, they remained united. There were difficult moments, of course, arguments about how to raise Luna, stress from balancing demanding careers with family life, old insecurities that occasionally resurfaced, but they always came back to the foundation they had built: honest communication, mutual respect, love that had survived tests that would destroy weaker relationships. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ryan organized a surprise dinner for Scarlett, just the two of them, at the restaurant where they had their first real date after reconciliation. Between delicious dishes and expensive wine, they reminisced about their journey. They laughed at how foolish they had been initially. They marveled at how much they had grown. Ryan held Scarlett's hand over the table and said something that summarized everything perfectly. He said that if he could go back in time, he wouldn't change anything, not even the devastating mistakes he had made, because every choice, good or bad, led to exactly where they were: happy, complete, together. Scarlett agreed through happy tears. She said she loved him more every day, that he was exactly the partner she needed: challenge and comfort, passion and peace. Nightmare transformed into the sweetest dream. When they returned home that night, Luna was sleeping under the nanny's care. They entered her room together, watching her sleep peacefully. Ryan wrapped his arms around Scarlett from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. He whispered that his greatest pride wasn't money or fame. It was the woman by his side and the daughter they had created together. Scarlett turned in his arms and kissed him with the love of a shared decade, with gratitude for second chances, with hope for all the years still to come. Because in the end, their story wasn't about the hate she felt temporarily. It was about the love they consciously chose every day. The boy who grew up suffocated by expectations learned to breathe. The girl who felt invisible found her voice. Together, they built a life that honored where they came from while embracing who they chose to be. And when Scarlett Morgan Caldwell slept at night, secure in the arms of the man she once swore to hate, she knew with absolute certainty that every tear shed, every broken heart, every moment of pain had been completely worth it, because it led to exactly where she was supposed to be, home, complete, loved, free.